The flash of camera bulbs illuminated Vanessa Prescott's carefully composed smile. Her hand rested protectively over the gentle curve of her 6-month pregnant belly, while her husband, Julian, kept his arm firmly around her waist. The Richardson Foundation Gala represented everything about their life together: glamorous, enviable, and meticulously curated for public consumption. Double quotes Mrs. Prescott. Over here, called a photographer. Vanessa turned, the emerald silk of her custom maternity down, catching the light. Julian's fingers tightened almost imperceptibly against her hip, guiding her movement. A reminder. A subtle assertion of control. "You're glowing tonight," whispered Julian, his lips brushing her ear. His cologne mingled with something else. Scent Vanessa couldn't quite place. Their driver opened the door to the waiting Bentley after the event. Inside the vehicle's quiet sanctuary, Julian immediately reached for his phone, his wedding band catching the passing streetlights as his thumbs danced across the screen. A small smile played at the corners of his mouth, one Vanessa hadn't seen. Directed at her in months. "Everything okay?" she asked, her voice barely disturbing the thick silence between them. "Oh, yes. Just Roger with updates on the Westlake merger. Numbers looking promising," Julian replied without looking up. The phone vibrated again. His smile widened. Back in their penthouse overlooking the city skyline, Vanessa slipped off her heels while Julian poured himself a whiskey. From the expansive windows, Chicago looked like a sea of stars beneath them. She remembered when they'd first moved in 3 years ago, how Julian had lifted her into his arms and carried her across the threshold, both of them laughing. "I'm going to shower," Julian announced, already loosening his tie. "Don't wait up. I need to review some documents for tomorrow's board meeting." Vanessa nodded, watching him disappear into their master suite. She wandered to the nursery they'd been preparing, a room of soft grays and gentle yellows. Her fingers traced the edge of the handcrafted crib Julian had insisted on importing from Italy. Everything in their life was the best, the most exclusive, including, she'd once believed, their love. The first suspicion had come 2 months ago, a text notification that flashed across Julian's phone during dinner. He'd turned the phone over too quickly, but not before Vanessa caught a woman's name and a heart emoji. She'd dismissed it, buried the worry beneath layers of trust and the excitement of their growing family. But then came the late nights, the emergency meetings that couldn't be rescheduled, the sudden business trips that extended without explanation. The way his touch had become perfunctory. Distracted. Vanessa settled onto the window seat in their bedroom, her academic journal forgotten in her lap. Before meeting Julian, she'd been completing her doctorate in art history. Now she was primarily Mrs. Julian Prescott, expectant mother and society wife. She'd embraced the role, believing it was built on something real. Her phone pinged with a calendar reminder. Tomorrow's appointment with her obstetrician. Julian had promised to attend, to hear their baby's heartbeat. She wondered if he would remember. The sound of the shower stopped. Minutes later, Julian emerged, water droplets still clinging to his shoulders. His phone buzzed on the nightstand. He glanced at Vanessa, then at the phone, hesitating for just a moment before picking it up. "Roger? Yes, I got your email," he said, his voice shifting into what Vanessa had come to think of as his CEO tone. He stepped onto the balcony, sliding the door closed behind him. Through the glass, Vanessa watched her husband's silhouette against the city lights, his gestures animated, intimate. This wasn't a business call. The realization settled into her. Bones like a winter chill. Something had changed in the foundation of her marriage. Hairline fractures spreading through what she thought was solid ground. As Julian laughed, a warm, genuine sound she hadn't heard in weeks, Vanessa made a decision. She would find out the truth, no matter how painful. Her hand moved protectively over her belly, feeling the flutter of movement within. "It's okay, little one," she whispered. "Whatever happens, I'll protect you." She didn't know yet what form that protection would take, but the maternal instinct growing alongside her child was fierce and clear. If Julian had betrayed them, she wouldn't respond. With tears and accusations. No, Vanessa Prescott would respond with something far more dangerous strategy. The Westlake merger dominated every conversation in the Prescott penthouse for the next 2 weeks. Julian spent most evenings on conference calls or hunched over financial reports, barely acknowledging Vanessa except to ask her to reschedule their birthing class or cancel their dinner with her parents. "The team needs this presentation finalized by morning," he explained, not meeting her eyes. "I've asked Olivia to come over to help. We'll be working in the home office." "Olivia?" Vanessa kept her voice neutral. "I don't think you've mentioned her before." Julian's fingers paused over his laptop keyboard. "Olivia Hayes, our new financial consultant. Brilliant with mergers, poached her from Thornfield Securities last month. At precisely 8 o'clock, the doorbell rang. Vanessa opened it to find a woman with copper hair cascading over the shoulders of her crimson blazer. Sharp amber eyes assessed Vanessa in one efficient sweep. "You must be Mrs. Prescott. I'm Olivia Hayes." Her handshake was firm, confident. "Your home is stunning." "Thank you," Vanessa replied, noting the expensive watch on Olivia's wrist identical to the one Julian had claimed was a gift for his sister's birthday last month. Julian appeared behind Vanessa, his hand settling on the small of her back in, a gesture that once felt loving, but now seemed performative. "Olivia, come in. We've got our work cut out for us tonight. Don't we always?" Olivia's laugh was low and conspiratorial. She brushed past them both, her perfume lingering a bold, spicy scent that Vanessa suddenly recognized from Julian's shirts. "Don't wait up," Julian told Vanessa, already guiding Olivia toward his office, his hand hovering near the small of her back in the exact same way. Instead of retreating to their bedroom, Vanessa quietly made tea in the kitchen, positioning herself where she could observe the office door. 3 hours passed. Occasional laughter drifted out, not the strained professional chuckles of colleagues, but the intimate sounds of shared secrets. At 11, Vanessa's phone buzzed with a message from Julian, ordering dinner. "Need anything?" she replied. "No, thank you." Going to bed. She didn't go to bed. Instead, she slipped into the guest bathroom near the office. Through the partially open door, she heard Julian's voice grow softer, more intimate. "The board doesn't suspect anything. They're completely focused on the Westlake numbers." Olivia's reply came with a rustle of movement. "And your wife?" "Vanessa? She's oblivious. Completely wrapped up in baby preparations." "And after the merger?" Olivia asked. "Then we execute the second phase as planned." Their voices dropped further, followed by the unmistakable sound of a kiss. Vanessa's hand instinctively covered her belly, protecting her child from a truth she could no longer deny. The next morning, she waited until Julian left for an early meeting before entering his office. She didn't touch his computer. Julian would notice immediately if she attempted to access his files. Instead, she checked the elegant leather wastebasket beside his desk. Buried beneath crumpled presentation notes was a hotel receipt from the Langham, dated 3 days earlier when Julian had claimed to be in New York. Room service for 2, champagne, and a breakfast she'd never shared. That afternoon, Vanessa visited her obstetrician alone, Julian having texted his regrets about missing the appointment. As she listened to her baby's strong heartbeat, a new resolve crystallized within her. She wasn't just protecting herself anymore. "Everything looks perfect," Dr. Morgan said, handing Vanessa the latest sonogram. "Have you decided on a birth plan yet?" "Not entirely," Vanessa replied, studying the image of her child. "But I'm starting." to realize I need to make some important decisions very soon. That evening, Julian announced he would be attending a weekend financial retreat in Lake Forest. "Just boring business talk. Nothing you'd enjoy," he said, kissing her forehead absently. When his phone chimed with a text message, Vanessa caught sight of the screen. "Can't wait for our private financial discussions this weekend." "Wear that?" "Blue tie again." Vanessa smiled and nodded, the picture of a trusting wife. But inside, the architect of her escape was already drawing up blueprints. Vanessa waited until Julian's luxury sedan disappeared from view before beginning her counteroffensive. Her first call wasn't to her mother or a friend. It was to Reynold Blackwood, a name she'd discreetly obtained from a support group for high profile divorces she'd been quietly researching online. "Mrs. Prescott." Reynolds' voice was steady and unrushed when he answered. "How can I assist you today?" They met at a private room in the Chicago Art Institute neutral ground where Vanessa's presence wouldn't raise eyebrows given her background in art history. Reynold was a former federal investigator turned private consultant who specialized in cases requiring absolute discretion. "I need information," Vanessa explained, arranging the evidence she'd gathered on the table between them. "My husband is having an affair with Olivia Hayes, but I suspect there's more happening than just infidelity." Reynolds studied the hotel receipts and meeting notes she'd photographed. "The Westlake merger is significant news in financial circles. Your husband stands to make billions. And I believe Olivia is using their relationship to influence the deal. Somehow, I need to know what they're planning, not just for my sake, but to protect my child's future." Reynolds nodded, his expression neutral, yet somehow reassuring. "I'll need 3 days. In the meantime, I suggest you secure your personal assets and prepare contingency plans." Over the next 72 hours, Vanessa executed her strategy with methodical precision. She visited her personal bank and transferred her inheritance from her grandmother into a new account under her maiden name, Harrison. She gathered her personal documents, birth certificate, passport, medical records, and stored them in a safety deposit box only she could access. She contacted her former academic advisor at Northwestern, Professor Way, about possibly resuming her doctoral studies. "I've never stopped believing in your potential, Vanessa," Way told her. "Your analysis of Renaissance patronage was groundbreaking." By Wednesday, Reynolds had delivered his preliminary findings in an encrypted file. Olivia Hayes wasn't just Julian's mistress. She was the niece of Westlake's CEO, Richard Westlake. The merger wasn't a simple business transaction. It was a calculated maneuver to dilute the Prescott family's controlling interest in their own company. "They're creating a shell corporation," Reynolds explained during their follow-up meeting. "Once the merger completes, key assets will be quietly transferred to this entity. On paper, everything looks proper, but effectively, Julian is sacrificing his company's long-term value for immediate personal gain. And his father's legacy," Vanessa murmured. Frederick Prescott had built the company from nothing, entrusting it to his son just before his death. Julian had sworn to honor that legacy. "There's more," Reynolds continued. "I've identified several offshore accounts in Julian's name. Accounts his board knows nothing about." Vanessa absorbed this information, feeling strangely calm. "I need one more thing from you, Reynolds. I need to disappear temporarily, but with enough leverage to ensure Julian can't use his resources against me when I resurface." Reynolds' expression remained professional, but his eyes held a hint of admiration. "Mrs. Prescott, I believe we can arrange exactly what you need." Back at the penthouse, Vanessa continued playing her role perfectly. She discussed nursery colors with Julian, listened to his sanitized versions of the merger progress, and pretended not to notice when he took calls from Roger on the balcony. On Thursday, Julian announced another weekend retreat. "The final push before we announce the merger," he explained, already packing his favorite suits. "Of course, darling," Vanessa replied, helping him select the blue tie Olivia had mentioned. "I understand how important this is to you." As Julian kissed her goodbye on Friday morning, his hand briefly rested on her belly. "Take care of our future CEO," he said with a wink. Vanessa placed her hand over his, wondering if he could feel how her heart had hardened. "Don't worry," she said softly. "I'm taking very good care of what matters most." The moment Julian's car disappeared from view, Vanessa's demeanor transformed. Gone was the accommodating smile, replaced by focused determination. She had exactly 48 hours to execute her plan before Julian returned. First, she contacted the art dealer who had been quietly appraising the collection she'd personally curated for their home. Pieces she'd selected based on her expertise, purchased with her inheritance money. Though displayed in the Prescott penthouse, the collection was legally hers alone. "The arrangements are complete, Mrs. Prescott," the dealer confirmed. "The works will be moved to secure storage this afternoon, and the funds transferred as discussed." Vanessa then called Reynolds. "Is everything prepared?" "Yes. The documentation is comprehensive. If your husband attempts any legal maneuvers against you, this information would be extremely damaging to both his personal reputation and the merger." "And the apartment?" "Leased under the name we discussed, paid 6 months in advance. No connection to you on paper. The security is exceptional." By noon, professional art handlers arrived, presenting documentation to the building's security staff. To anyone observing, it appeared to be routine maintenance of valuable artwork, a common occurrence in luxury buildings. While they worked, Vanessa packed a single suitcase with practical necessities, comfortable clothes, essential prenatal vitamins, and just 3 sentimental items: her grandmother's sapphire pendant, her doctoral research notes, and the most recent sonogram of her baby. She left behind her designer wardrobe, the jewelry Julian had given her, and all the trappings of her life as Mrs. Prescott. They were beautiful chains, not treasures. At precisely 3 o'clock, Vanessa entered Julian's office one last time. From her purse, she removed a small velvet box, the distinctive navy blue of Tiffany & Co. It was the box from the bracelet Julian had given Olivia, which Vanessa had seen her wearing at their last company event. Inside, she placed her wedding, an engagement rings over $2 million of diamonds and platinum that had once symbolized a promise. She positioned the box in the center of his desk, open, with no note. The message was in the silence. Beneath it, she placed a sealed envelope containing ultrasound images of their child, not as leverage, but as a reminder of what he had truly sacrificed. Her final act was to remove from her phone the tracking applications Julian had insisted were for her safety. She placed the phone on their bed, factory reset to erase her digital footprints. At 4:30, a car service Reynolds had arranged arrived at the service entrance of their building. Vanessa, wearing a simple black dress and sunglasses, her pregnant belly clearly visible, stepped into the elevator for the last time. The security guard at the service exit nodded respectfully. "Have a good weekend, Mrs. Prescott." "Thank you, Marcus." "You too." Her voice betrayed none of the emotion churning beneath her composed exterior. As the car pulled away, Vanessa didn't look back at the gleaming tower that had been her gilded cage. Instead, she activated the new phone Reynolds had provided and sent him a single text: "Phase 1 complete." Within an hour, she was settled into her new apartment in a secure building across town, modest but comfortable, with additional security measures Reynolds had arranged. The place had no connection to Vanessa Harrison or Vanessa Prescott. For now, she was simply tenant 507, paid through a shell company Reynolds had created. That evening, as darkness fell over Chicago, Vanessa stood at her new window, watching lights flicker across a skyline that suddenly represented possibility rather than confinement. She felt her baby move, a strong kick against her palm. "It's just us now," she whispered, "but we're going to be okay." She placed her hand on the secure laptop containing evidence of Julian's financial manipulations and affair her insurance. Policy against his inevitable rage. The dead man's switch was set. If anything happened to her, everything would be sent to the SEEK, the Board of Prescott Industries, and major financial publications. For the first time in months, Vanessa slept, deeply and dreamlessly, free from the whispers of betrayal that had haunted her marital bed. Julian Prescott returned to the penthouse Sunday evening, exhilarated by the weekend's developments. The merger details were finalized. Olivia had been exceptionally inventive in celebrating their success, and his financial future was secured. Regardless of how the board might eventually react to the more creative aspects of the deal, "Vanessa?" he called, dropping his keys in the crystal bowl by the door. The silence that greeted him felt different somehow, not the peaceful quiet of a sleeping home, but something hollow and absolute. He loosened his tie, assuming she was resting. Pregnancy had made her tired lately, a convenient excuse for his absences. "Darling?" He called again, moving toward the bedroom. The perfectly made bed stopped him cold. Vanessa was meticulous, but she always read before sleeping, leaving a gentle impression on her side of the mattress. This bed looked untouched. Her phone lay centered on her pillow, an ominous still life. Julian's heartbeat quickened. He moved to her closet, expecting emptiness, but found everything in place. Her clothes hung with perfect precision, shoes aligned, handbags displayed. Only when he looked closer did he notice the few empty hangers were her most comfortable. Pieces had hung. Returning to the bedroom, he noticed their wedding photograph was missing from the knitstand. His eyes darted around the room, cataloging other subtle absences: her prenatal vitamins, the book she'd been reading, her grandmother's quilt. When he entered his office, the small blue box centered on his desk hit him like a physical blow. The open lid revealed her rings, gleaming accusingly under the recessed lighting. No note, no explanation. Just diamonds worth millions abandoned like worthless glass. "God damn it!" he roared, sweeping the box off the desk. The rings skittered across the hardwood floor, coming to rest against the envelope of ultrasound images. Julian's. Hands shook as he snatched up his phone, dialing Vanessa's number. The mechanical ring echoed from the bedroom where her phone lay abandoned. He called her mother, her friends, even her former academic advisor. No one had heard from her by midnight. Panic had replaced anger. He logged into their joint accounts to find her personal inheritance money, he'd always considered inconsequential, had been withdrawn days earlier. A call to their art insurer confirmed what he hadn't even noticed. Her personally owned collection, worth millions, had been professionally moved to storage. Not stolen, properly documented, and removed with authorization, he couldn't contest. Julian paced the penthouse, a predator in a suddenly unfamiliar territory. This wasn't an emotional outburst. This was a strategic withdrawal, executed with military precision. His wife, his pregnant, supposedly naive wife, had outmaneuvered him completely. At dawn, he called Olivia. "Something's happened. Vanessa's gone." "Gone? What do you mean gone?" Olivia's voice sharpened with alarm. "The merger announcement is tomorrow." "I know the fucking timeline," he snapped. "She's disappeared. Left her rings. Took almost nothing with her." "She can't know anything," Olivia insisted. "She's probably at her mother's, throwing a pregnancy tantrum." But Julian wasn't convinced. He remembered Vanessa's expression the last time he'd seen her: serene, composed, and something else he couldn't quite name. Not hurt, not anger. Something far more dangerous. By Monday morning, when Julian should have been celebrating the merger announcement, he was instead meeting with private investigators, offering obscene amounts of money to find his wife. None could locate her. It was as if Vanessa Harrison Prescott had simply ceased to exist. The merger press conference proceeded without him. The board, concerned by his unexplained absence, sent the CFO instead. Financial reporters noted Julian's absence, with speculation about family matters. That afternoon, Julian received an encrypted email containing documented evidence of his offshore accounts, compromising communications with Olivia about the true nature of the merger, and records of his systematic betrayal of both his marriage and his father's company. The message was simple: I have no desire to destroy what your father built. Proceed with the merger as planned, and this information remains private. Contest my divorce filing or attempt to find me before our child is born, and every board member, shareholder, and financial regulator receives this file. You taught me well, Julian. It's all about control. As night fell over Chicago, Julian Prescott stood alone in his perfect penthouse, holding a blue box that had once contained a bracelet for his mistress and now held the shattered remains of his carefully controlled world. Miles away, Vanessa sat in her new apartment, hands resting protectively over her growing child, watching the financial news announce the Prescott-Westlake merger. Her face betrayed no emotion as the reporter praised Julian Prescott's business acumen. She knew something the world didn't. The true power had silently changed hands, not with angry words or public accusations, but with the devastating precision of complete silence.